council agreed on first reading to put a 1% sales tax initiative on the ballot in April for the benefit of a recreation center. This ordinance was passed on first reading on January 23rd.
Under the, I don't know what part this is, but it's in the ballot language about the 10% of the principal amount may be used to fund a reserve. I took that to mean the 10% of the 18 million. But I believe now that it's in addition to the 18 million, it's another 1.7 million, if I'm reading things right. Somebody correct me if I'm not. I look at what the bond company gave us, and it's an addition. Is that fair or not?
Mr. Mitchell?
I believe it is an addition, and the purpose for that 10% is to draw down the interest rate and make the interest more affordable. Having that reserve in place makes it a safer loan for the borrower, for the lender, apologize. And having that in place reduces the interest rate. And I believe indeed it is in addition.
I believe that makes, I think it's misleading. I mean, I read it to be 10% of the 18 million, but if it isn't, it's an addition worth almost $2 million. I think that's significant. I don't know what we do now. Here, how it relates to this. I don't know how you interpret it. Somebody tell me.
Did I misstate?
You stated exactly accurately.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
In that case, I think the language is misleading. And I'm not the only dummy that would read that as part of the 18 million, I would think. Anybody else read it that way?
My understanding was that the reserve came out was going to be taken out
Of the 18 million. Could you bear with me for just a moment? Because I need to ask.
The cost of the project is 18 million plus 10%. So that's how they got to this.
I appreciate
So
it.
it's 18 million
Plus. Got it. I understand.
I just wanted for my own clarification of my own thinking, to ensure that it indeed is 18 million plus 10%. That is correct. Is the way the lending agency would calculate.
Is there a way to clarify the wording on that? To be sent to the voters that would appease or at least answer Darrel's question about possibly being misleading, and also trustee Bunning. Not being an attorney, I don't know what the best way to go about that would be, but.
I believe that was one of the items that was optional, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we don't have to put it in. Bob actually recommended us not putting it in. When the bonds go to sale, if you put this in, then it's required. Actually, it's not, it's an option. But we don't have to put it in and still come up with the same thing once they sell the bonds. So originally, the original recommendation was not to have this 10% in there.
Trustee Lattin?
When we went back onto that in our discussion as well, if we have that reserve in there, we get the AAA bond rating. And That's the way I'm understanding it, by having that reserve. Is that right, Mark?
Absolutely.
And by having that reserve, that also gives the town the backing that that reserve is there to be able to make payments had there ever been a decline in the sales tax. But we're under no obligation to ever use that money or spend it. We can use that money to pay off early as well. It's just a reserve in case.
If the bond company says that's the best way to get your bond in the market, then we're gonna borrow the money. And I just think it ought to be clear that the real loan we're asking for is 19.7 million, not 18. And maybe it isn't a big deal, but I think it's misleading to say we're borrowing 18, but we're really borrowing 20. If the bond company thinks we ought to, which they will, to get the rate. I don't want to hold it up, I just,
Happy trails to you until we meet again.